Man, guys, the name of this episode for our Ranking of Kings episode 13, I believe, review is very fitting. The Kingdom in Turmoil. It is the most fitting thing ever because things are not looking good for our characters. You know, shit is quite literally hitting the fan in this episode. And we actually have a lot to talk about. I actually had to break out Notepad Coon again because there's so much to go over in this episode. So much happened. A lot of important stuff, too. So let's kind of just get into it and just dive right in because we had a jam packed episode of Ranking of Kings. Alright, so our episode begins, well, where the last one left off, obviously, with Queen Hiling and her forces invading the castle. And I gotta say right now, they put up a hell of a fight, you know? For a while, it looks like they're gonna win. Actually, they're taking out all these monsters and all that. They do have Dorsch with them after all, who has fought these monsters, and he puts up a hell of a fight against them. He's taking them out left and right. We even think he's gonna go down at one point, but he has experience fighting them. He knows how they fight. They almost killed him in a previous episode, after all. So he actually has a new set of armor on him with blades on his back, on his ankles, all that, which is very smart, honestly. Incredibly smart. He puts up a hell of a fight against them, but then the escaped criminals start joining in, and Hilling's forces start getting overwhelmed. You know, they put up a good fight. They certainly do. But the criminals are just too much for them. Dorsch can't handle the criminals, the monsters, and protecting Queen Hiling. And the guards that they have with her, they're competent enough, but they get taken out by the giant criminal, literally a giant. And they get taken out of commission. And even her royal guard assistant, who I think, what was her name, Rose, I'm pretty sure, even she gets taken out, or she gets into an altercation with Oaken, actually, because Dorsch sees that this is a losing battle. So he actually tries to send Queen Hiling away, and they get intercepted by Oaken, who actually lands a blow on Hiling. Because we know Oaken is a very, very cruel man, and we see that later in this episode, but he actually cuts Queen Hiling's wrist, because that's apparently his thing. He likes cutting people's wrists and their tendons, in their Achilles and their ankles and all that, and he likes watching them suffer as they bleed out. A very twisted man indeed. So Queen Hilling's freaking out, of course. She starts healing her wound immediately, and it appears that Oaken gets taken out by Rose. You know, she stabs him in both of his eyes and his mouth with these daggers, and it's assumed that he's dead. But we see something very interesting, actually. We see the blood profusely coming out of his helmet, but then all of a sudden, it goes back in. You know, it's like his body absorbs the blood again, and he gets back up. So he apparently has regenerative powers, which is quite interesting. And he actually slices her throat. He actually cuts her throat right then and there. And Hiling is freaking out, of course. She jumps off her horse and tries to heal her. And she does, of course. But in the process, she gets surrounded by these monsters. And Dorsch is out of commission right now. He got knocked out earlier by the giant criminal. And he's just literally laying under the hammer. And it looks like Hiling is going to die all of a sudden. But then we get something very interesting, actually, that I was quite surprised about. Apis actually saves Hiling. And instead of getting furious about it, Miranjo respects his wishes and is like, alright, I'll do this for you. If Dorsch can save them... Actually, no. She gives them a second. She holds the beasts back for a second and says, if Dorsch can save them, I might let them go. So Apis just screams for Dorsch to get up, who he does, and he has a second wind, and he just starts beating the hell out of these monsters, the creatures. He just starts killing them left and right. He truly gets a second wind. And we see the relieved look on Apis. But alas, it's not enough. He does eventually get overwhelmed again. And Hiling has to try to escape yet again. But this time it does not happen. And Dorsch is down for the count. Let me just say, Dorsch is awesome, guys. Dorsch is such a great character. This man fights harder than anyone in the whole show. But he's just getting pinned down by these creatures. They have their literal, like, claws in his back. And they're, like, chewing his leg off. And we actually see that his leg gets severed. And Miranjo tells Apis, like, our time here is done. You know, let's go to the underground. People are breaking in. Because Domas and Hokuro's plan is being enacted right now to destroy the underground. And Miranjo senses that. So she wants Apis to leave. And she asks him, like, she tells him the bloodbath is about to begin. Do you really have the stomach to stay here and watch this? So they start heading away, you know. They start walking away. And now we transition to Oaken, actually. He doesn't stick around that area. He decides to go into town and start just randomly killing people. Really just showing how cruel he is. And he actually gets intercepted by our boy Bojji and the captain, the guard captain of the underworld. And we get a little flashback saying how the captain of Despa saying, Captain, you are not strong enough to beat Oaken. You are not skilled enough to defeat him. And no matter what happens, you cannot let Bojji fight him. He is Bojji's like natural enemy. He's the one thing that Bojji cannot beat on his own. So no matter what, you cannot let Bojji fight him. Which is interesting, you know, because with that regenerative ability, he probably would be the perfect counter for Bojji. Because in our previous episode, we found out that Bojji's attacks, with his sword being so thin, he basically has a rapier. With his sword being so thin, he kind of punctures his enemies like nerves. And he's able to cut off their blood flow and all that. So he's able to incapacitate people without killing them. But we see that apparently Oaken can't really take damage. He kind of regenerates it back. So he is kind of like a perfect foil for Bojji. So the captain tells Bojji, go on ahead. I will take this out. Go rescue the queen. So Bojji does do that. And it's revealed that Oaken is apparently the prince. He calls him Prince Oaken, which leads me to believe that he's the king's son. I think he's the king's son. Desha was his name, King Desha. I believe he's his son, which is quite interesting. Why would he lock his own son up? But we'll get to that eventually, I'm sure. Now, we actually get a bit more with Miranjo and Apis. We get a flashback, because Apis is asking her, like, why do you hate Hiling so much? And it turns out that Miranjo's actually the one that brought Hiling to the castle. Because you see, in a previous scene, she was begging King Boss to have another kid. Because we know how the system, how it works. He has a kid. Through the demon, he's able to take that kid's power and make it his own. And it apparently prolongs his life as well. And we saw with Daida that he can take over people's bodies. So she's begging him to have another kid. And to me, I don't know if I'm reading too much into this, but to me, it looked like she wanted to say, have a kid with me. That's what I got. She wanted to say that desperately, but she didn't. And I think Boss kind of realized that too. There was kind of an awkward moment between the two before she eventually came back and offered Hiling. So they definitely have some history together. Like, and she even says that she does everything she's doing. Everything she's doing right now, she's doing it so Boss can achieve his dream. And that his family is the only thing getting in the way of that. That's why she wants to kill them all so badly. So she must owe a great debt to Boss. If not just love him, like I said in a previous episode. I think she definitely does. I think that's pretty apparent that she's infatuated with him. But it's quite interesting because here's a fact I actually did not know. I paid way more attention to the opening this time, and it looks like this might get revealed in a later episode, but from the opening, it looks like she's interacting with that demon as a child, and the demon's a child too. And we actually see a scene. It's a brief scene in the opening, but if you go and look at it, the demon actually has his hands around her. So that leads me to believe that maybe she's being controlled by this demon. Because we saw in the first couple episodes of the show, in fact, that Boss was possessed by this demon. When he died, the demon actually came out of his body. So that leads me to believe that maybe she's not the mastermind we think she is. Maybe she's getting manipulated just as much as everyone else is. The demon's preying upon her feelings of inequality and all that. Because we saw in the previous episode that she was tortured as a kid, basically. She was countlessly harassed by the people. So she has a growing resentment. And Boss apparently took her in. And I feel like this demon is manipulating her to do so. But yeah, she's actually the one that brought Hiling in there, which is very interesting. Of why she would hate her so much. Because, like I said, to me, it seemed apparent that she wanted to tell him, have a kid with me. But she didn't for some reason. There must be a reason behind that. But I just thought it was very interesting that she's actually the reason Hiling is there. She's the one that brought her to the kingdom in the first place. So Boss could have a kid with her. So she's been scheming this a very long time. I would assume with this demon, but I don't know. But as they're heading back to the underground, Apis actually gets attacked by the criminals that they let out. They were able to subdue him for a brief moment, and they actually kidnap Miranjo. They kidnap her mirror. But a pissed off Apis quickly catches up to them. And he's ready to beat their asses. He is furious. But we see the bandit leader actually intercept him again, and he's begging for the other criminals' lives and all that. But he has a grin on his face. And it turns out they actually take Apis out somehow, and they're leaving with Miranjo. Like, how did he take Apis out? He must have some secret ability that we have not seen yet, because I find it hard to believe he could take Apis out. But that's how our episode ends, actually, with them walking away with Miranjo. Probably going to the underground to intercept Domas and Hokuro. So we had a very interesting episode, and the Kingdom in Turmoil, the name of the episode, I thought was very fitting because shit is really hitting the fan. Like, we are not in a good situation. Like, Dorsch is done. He's down for the count. Hiling is completely surrounded by people, potentially about to be taken out. The guard captain is fighting Oken in town, who is just randomly killing people. And Bojji is racing to rescue Hiling. So everything's kind of up in the air now. Before I forget, I'm glad I was talking about that. We see a quick scene, like a very brief scene in the episode, where we see Bepin actually is confronting the king in the dungeon. We see that he's confronting him. So I'm very curious to know where that goes and what his goal has been this whole series. Because he's been an enigma the whole series. And he only shows up every once in a while. But when he does, it's pretty significant. So I'm very curious to know where that's going to go. If he's going to question the king, like, why are you doing this, boss? Like, what is your goal here? Because that's also been an enigma the whole series. Like, Boss was made out to be the king of kings, you know, the greatest man ever. But this whole series, he's basically been an asshole and like a douchebag, treating his family the way he does. So I'm very curious to know why he's doing it. I don't think it's just because he's secretly evil. Because in our flashbacks, we see that he cares. So I'm very curious to figure out actually why this is happening. But I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments what you thought about this episode. It was a pretty intense episode the whole way through, honestly. There really weren't any breaks. And our characters are in pretty dire straits right now. Can Bojji get back in time to save Hiling? I would imagine. I mean, I imagine it's a show. We got more episodes. Everyone can't die already, but I don't know. I'm very curious to see. So let me know what you thought about the episode in the comments, guys. But yeah, this series just continues to get better and better. Like going into the series, I didn't think it would be as violent as it is, honestly. But there's a lot of death and like messed up things that's happening in it. I kind of like it though, in a way. You know, I feel like something like this plays really well with the animation style that we have in this series. I don't know. I feel like it just works well because you'd see an animation style like this, and you'd think to yourself, "Oh, this is gonna be like a happy-go-lucky show. Nothing bad's gonna happen." But a lot of bad things have happened. So I'm very curious to see where we go from here. But yeah, guys, that'll be it for today's episode. If you enjoyed, leave a comment down below. Like I said, let me know what you thought about it. Like the video, honestly. I greatly appreciate the likes and all that. You know, we're getting there. We're getting more likes. We're getting more views, but leaving a like would certainly make my day, guys. I'd appreciate it immensely. You know, but I hope you guys have a great day, week, month, and year. We're starting to wind down on this series. We're getting there. We're getting closer to the end. And we got a bunch more series coming up soon. Next couple days, actually, a bunch of shows get released. So stay tuned for that, because I'm very excited for the new season. But yeah, guys, until next time, I hope you all have a great day, and deuces.